Ahoy, this is David Perry and the continuing series of video interviews I have about people learning to get us from the great pause into the great return, as I call. And I'm very happy to introduce our next guest, someone who has been helping the Hotel Council, and I think will be very busy over the next few months, getting us all ready for how to keep on keeping on. And that's Dan Richards of the San Francisco company Ideal. Dan, welcome.
Ahoy, David. Thank you for having me.
So before we start, tell us a little bit about what is Ideal all about and how did you come up with the idea?
So Ideal is a building recovery company based here in San Francisco. The type of services that we offer is pretty much anything that a building property damage will occur, such as water damage, fire, mold, remediation. And then about 10 years ago, we started moving towards asbestos remediation or asbestos abatement, as well as lead abatement. Along with that, we have also have started our bio remediation division as well. So when it comes to bodily fluids, when it comes to other diseases such as MRSA or C. diff in hospitals, about 10 years ago, we have started utilizing that service a little bit more often.
So when did you first hear about COVID? And then when did you realize Ideal is going to be awfully busy for the next few months?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say the first time I've heard about COVID was probably towards November of last year, as we started seeing towards the news a little bit more on CNN, especially what's going on in Wuhan, China, and just the outbreak that is occurring over in that area. Now, didn't really think it was going to reach the US, of course. I'm sure most people didn't really think it was possible, or that a disease like that could spread, or really a virus like that could spread that quickly. So towards, of course, March, when we started seeing some cases come up here in California that were confirmed for COVID-19, that's when I started thinking, wow, there's going to be, it's here and it's not going anywhere. And it didn't really become real until the Department of Public Health had reached out to us and asked us for some help.
So tell me about that. The Department of Public Health in San Francisco reached out to you. And what was that outreach like and what was their request, if I may ask?
Yeah, so Department of Public Health, they have several contracts out there for San Francisco vendors. We are a San Francisco vendor since we're based here in San Francisco. The contract that we had with the Department of Public Health several years ago was for Ebola response and cleanup. So when Ebola became a hot topic in the news, Department of Public Health was actually the first department in California to come out with a contract for Ebola response and cleanup. So if anyone were to travel here by plane and has been confirmed to have Ebola, they would utilize our services. So when it came to COVID-19, they've also, because of our previous relationship with them, we haven't done any Ebola remediation in San Francisco, fortunately.
I always thank you for that.
But when COVID-19 came up, they had reached out and said, "Hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for a vendor or a specialist like Ideal to come in and help us where needed." They didn't really tell us about the areas that we would be helping them with. They didn't tell us the locations, but they mentioned when there is a need for your services, we like to utilize Ideal since we're familiar with what you guys do.
How much has, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say UCSF has also been a big proponent of us, and so they've heard about what we're doing for UCSF for other type of situations, and so that's when they became to call us and ask us for help as well.
How much has COVID impacted your business?
So of course, before COVID, it made up 0% of our work. When COVID first hit, I'd say probably towards the beginning of April, it became 25% of our work. Then now it's about 50 to 75% of our work. We're still doing, of course, buildings are still flooding. Buildings, of course, they don't tell you when they're going to flood. So we still provide building remediation for water damage scenarios or situations. But of course, it's not as a constant need or everyday need like it is with COVID-19 disinfecting, or SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that leads to COVID-19. That's going on every day. We're on around the clock with the Department of Public Health and our other partners in the commercial facilities and financial institutions as well.
So have you had to bring on staff because of COVID?
No. Well, yes and no. Not for COVID specifically, but to continue with our other services. Because it's COVID-19, of course, because it's a virus, we really took it seriously and wanted to ensure that only those that have experience, those that have been working with other viruses like norovirus or C. diff or MRSA, what I mentioned before, that they were the only ones to be really working on COVID-19 disinfecting. It's a habit that each technician or each employee has to have to ensure that cross-contamination is not going to occur on site.
So I've been in one, two, it may even be three seminars that you have led specifically about how public buildings and hotels here in San Francisco are going to adapt and are adapting now to I don't want to say a post-COVID world, but a world in which COVID is part of the ecosystem. Talk to me about that. How are hotels and public spaces for hospitality and tourism going to change? Are they changing now? And the 30,000 foot level recommendations that you at Ideal are giving them to execute these changes.
Well, number one is training. Training and understanding of the virus itself, how it spreads. The CDC recently came about where the virus is unlikely to spread, or someone's unlikely to have contract COVID-19 from a surface. But it's, you still want to ensure that the surfaces are clean daily. So it's understanding how it's spread, how it works really, as well as what they need to do as a team to ensure that inside the rooms or in the public spaces that they're keeping the facilities clean, they're not cross-contaminating, and also they are knowledgeable on what type of solutions, as well as how to apply the solution, how that works. There's a lot of organizations that are out there that don't know some of the basics of how to apply the solution. Some of the words like dwell time was foreign to people, as well as what verbs or words to use: disinfect, sanitize, sterilize. We hear that quite often, and so it's really just a training of what it is, how it spreads, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we accomplish it. That's been one of the big keys that I've seen the San Francisco Hotel Council really play in training the hotel members.
How important is it for an organization like the Hotel Council to do this sort of training for its members?
Well, I think it's without saying that if the hotels aren't keeping their employees safe, aren't keeping their guests safe, organizations like Salesforce or Oracle, it'll become unlikely for them to host any of the large events here in San Francisco. Tourism as well. No one wants to go and stay in an area or an environment where they feel unsafe. So we've of course will see that tourism will be down. But if they were to know that the hotel is taking the proper steps, they're following specific guidelines from the CDC and also from the EPA, then they would change their mindset of staying in San Francisco.
And how responsive have the various hotels, the general managers, the owners, the staffs, been to this sort of training?
They've been very supportive from day one. There has been some other guidelines that were published by the state, specifically on the hotel and lodging, but they weren't really specific on the how-to. So the how-to is what people were really missing, is how do I apply this? How is this, in terms of scenarios or situations, how do I do this differently? So they've been really supportive of the Hotel Council because we go into the details about the how to apply. So there's no room for error or room for them to make up their own how to. where they're actually following the guidelines that are specific in the document.
Yeah, you talk about the semantics of all of this, just describing to people and explaining to people the difference between sanitize and sterilize and disinfect. So for the lay people that are watching this, tell us about the difference between those three words and some of the other
Yeah.
words we hear bandied about every day when I'm just cleaning my tub or my kitchen. What's the difference between some of the words we use in everyday parlance and how it really has become a very serious matter dealing with COVID?
So the definitions for sterilize, that would be for a clean room environment. What you're trying to do is remove or limit all bacteria or viruses. Disinfect is that you're just deactivating the virus and also deactivating the bacteria. And the last one was sterilize, is to remove some of the viruses or some bacteria. It doesn't even mention viruses. So as we know that SARS-CoV-2, again, that the virus that leads to COVID-19 is the virus that leads to that. So we want to, sterilizing or sanitizing is not going to work on viruses. Disinfecting will also work on viruses. So some of the definitions play a big role. Again, if a hotel were to tell a guest, we sterilize the room, they're really setting themselves up for over achieving than what they actually have done.
So really what we want to say is that we disinfect. That is possible and
Correct.
practical when dealing with the coronavirus that leads to COVID-19.
It is. Yep. You're deactivating the virus. You're not killing the virus because the virus is not alive to begin with, but you're deactivating it, making the virus. There's a word that it's blanking on me, but a virus that's not going to cause someone to contract the disease.
Right. And sterilize is the sort of environment you see in the movie E.T. when they go in to take the guy out. I mean, it's
right. Clean room, very clean environment. People are in the white robes, and it's a dust-free environment. It's even difficult for them to be fully sterile or sterilized. So it's it's quite a big claim for people to make.
Right.
And so it's just educating them on how not to make big claims like that.
Right. Now, as I said, I've seen several of your seminars, webinars. They've been really great. I mean, I learned a bunch. And as you said, they're very practical. It's showing hotel management and business and building owner management how to actually physically do this stuff. I learned a bunch about, for instance, rags. I mean, there's a big deal now about cloth rags and washing them and reinfection. In our last few moments, talk to me about some of the general things that you have learned since dealing with the coronavirus and COVID, and some of the things that have come up for the people you've been training that they were like, wow, I never thought of that before. This is really important, something that's going to help me deal not only with COVID, but also, going forward, how to deal with other possible infectious agents.
Well, I think it's for me in terms of what I've learned with COVID, and it's always changed. The information comes out where it wasn't published beforehand. So I'm constantly learning every week on the new CDC guidelines or new things that the CDC would say regarding SARS-CoV-2 that have not been previously known or that were previously plausible, but now it's confirmed. So it's really some of those. For example, the suspension of the virus in the air when someone sneezes lasts from several hours to a day, depending on the environment. And so I've been educated on the type of environment based on where this person was or what has been done in the room. The virus could be in that room for a couple hours to a day. There has been some previously tests or case studies where they have found SARS-CoV-2 on a material for more than 14 days. So it was the 7 between 14 days time frame that we thought to be the case. Now the CDC says that is unlikely to occur. It lasts between 1 and 2 days. So there's always a constant definition change or constant change in the facts of SARS-CoV-2.
Right now, acknowledging that over 500,000 people in the world have now succumbed to COVID-19, and here in the United States, over 100, and I believe as of this recording, 130,000, almost 130,000 people. But here in San Francisco in the Bay Area, we have, they're calling it the California miracle. In San Francisco, I believe it's still less than 55 people have died. What is it about San Francisco that you think makes us, well, we seem to take recommendations of our health professionals and people like Ideal better. Why is that, you
I think in terms of the awareness of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 came out pretty quickly here in San Francisco. The mayor did a pretty good job. Those that may agree or disagree chose to shut down the city early. Has been really good job by our mayor, as well as the Department of Emergency Management. So also UCSF. So UCSF is a big partner and proponent with the city of San Francisco and providing the education and resources for those that may have contracted it or want to ask some questions. UCSF has been preparing for this for quite some time. I would say if not in the month of March, maybe the month of February, they've been preparing. They've been actually developing rooms, isolated rooms for those that are could become ill. So when it actually did occur, their months of planning or weeks of planning has already been paying off. Department of Emergency Management has also done a really good job in providing education on a daily basis. John McKnight, who is one of the managers at Department of Emergency Management, sets up a regular virtual call with specific people or specific departments here in San Francisco, where the public can also join. Again, just providing that awareness and education around, what's occurring for that week or for that day and what some of the new things that they have to learn.
Second to the last question, how fragile is the actual virus when it lands on a surface or something? Is this a hard thing to, you say kill is not the right word, so I'll use the right word. Is this a fairly easy or a fairly difficult virus to disinfect?
It's a fairly easy virus to disinfect. And the EPA site has developed a list of solutions that it is effective against SARS-CoV-2. It's a envelope virus. In fact, I would have to put pause on that real quick because I get confused with envelope and non-envelope viruses.
But I think what you mean is by the envelope, it's wrapped within a tissue of fat, is my understanding, as it is, a lipid.
Correct, and that lipid's easily to be broken. Those that without a envelope, it is a little harder to actually penetrate through that, through the surface. So SARS-CoV-2, the virus, is easy to kill. Even something like bleach or alcohol isopropyl as a high concentration is effective against the virus. So it is fairly easy to use to deactivate, but again, it's also very easily to be contaminated or contaminate other surfaces if you're not deactivating it correctly.
Which of course is the challenge. Last question. As you said, you've seen COVID go from 0% of your work because it didn't exist to now, I think you said upwards of 70% of your workload. Are you optimistic about going forward that we will begin as a business, as a society, to incorporate living with COVID into our lives? Because even if there's, my understanding, a vaccine tomorrow, it's going to take a number of months to deploy. We're going to be living with COVID for a good while. Are you optimistic that societally we're going to be able to deal with this in a practical and healthy way?
If it's just San Francisco, absolutely. Based on what I'm seeing with not only the Hotel Council, but also BOMA, the Building Owners Management Association of San Francisco, that really have, since the beginning, since March, have done a really good job in putting a plan in place to how to come back to the work, how to come back to the workplace. I would say based off of that, in the education that the Department for Emergency Management is providing, and how receptive San Franciscans are to adopt some of the new measures, I'm optimistic that, I want to say soon, but I would say eventually within the next year, we'll be back to work, back in business.
That's great. Dan Richards, thank you so much for speaking with us, and thank you for your work with Ideal. If someone wants to learn more about Ideal, where online can they go to find it?
They can go to idealsf.com. Of course, www.idealsf.com. They can find out more information about us. They can also get in contact with us directly on the website, where we can set up a virtual call to have a conversation with them to understand what they're looking for and how we may be of assistance.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. We look forward to speaking to you again, and thank you again for your work helping keep San Francisco and San Franciscans safe. Ahoy.
Ahoy. Thanks, David.